you. I would encourage you to not shy away from the intensity of the moment and the sorrow that you feel in your hearts. We're too quick to try to push that away and move on to the next thing. I think this is a moment in our country where we need to stay right where we are right now in this pain and use that, transform it, transmute it into collective action to make a change to save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that came here today, especially the students who organized this. This is what it's come to in this country. Kids are typically expected to take a back seat to what goes on in politics and policy. And what's going on right now, it can't happen like that any longer. There's been a conversation about what to do with guns and what to do with gun violence in our schools for 6 years since Newtown. It's the same conversation, the same debate, and the same ideologies battling back and forth, and it hasn't worked. We know it hasn't worked. Our Congress has done nothing. Our state legislatures, a majority of them, are doing nothing. It's time that students everywhere across the country, whether you're a blue state, red state, get involved, speak up in their own local communities, have that conversation at the dinner table with their parents and let them know that enough is enough. Enough blood in our classroom, enough children who innocently being gunned down by guns that should not be able to be purchased by any private citizen. These students up here agree that we should not have assault rifles for any private citizen.
Right.
If we want to talk about gun legislation and we want to talk about mental health, then it needs to be a conversation that lasts more than 5 minutes. It can't be a conversation that you have on Facebook and you debate and you argue and you post memes. That's not enough anymore. Every single person needs to get involved and contact their state legislators, their congressmen. They need to go to the streets and tell their neighbor, enough is enough. The schools cannot have this anymore. Myself, I'm 16 years old. I cannot vote. I'm a junior in high school. That doesn't mean I can't do anything. Watching the news, I contacted David Hogg, who's one of the students for Parkland High, and I asked him and I said, what can we do? How can I help you all the way across the country in New Jersey? What can I do? And he said, organize. Monday. Don't wait. Don't wait until next month. Don't wait for this conversation to be over. Start now. Go in your own community. It doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what the demographic is, start the conversation now, and it has to be students who start it. And I made that promise. I made that promise that I would organize that rally, and I would show that students in New Jersey do care, and we are there for them in Florida, and we're going to work from our local level to our state level, and it's going to work all through this country. Students like this have to organize to show that we care what happened in Florida. We care what happens to every victim of these school shootings that are unnecessary. Prevention. Prevention. Why isn't that a conversation? We have to work for it. This shouldn't happen. We shouldn't have to be up here like this when adults have the responsibility to take care of these things and they fail. We don't want to hear the same conversation that guns don't kill people, people kill people. It's not enough anymore. We don't want to hear that. You know, organizations like Moms Demand Action, you know, emerge, and now we have a branch of Students Demand Action, and it's come to that point where we have to take that action to do. I think, you know, there's so much opposition in the nation. You know, guns are a part of our culture, and no one up here is trying to say, take away the Second Amendment or take away their guns. That's not what we're saying. We're saying is, why can't we be smart? Why can't we be like other nations and end this senseless, mindless violence that's going on in our schools. It's not appropriate, it's not right, and we need to work together to solve it. It's our generation's responsibility because the rest, it's not working in Congress. We need to show them, we need to elect people who care.
That's right.
It's just not happening. It goes from the high school students to middle school and elementary school. It's a problem that if we don't take care of it now, it's only going to get worse. There are things that we have to equate school security and the conversation about mental health. But if you had increased gun legislation in the first point, we wouldn't have to have these secondary conversations. If you did it the first time right, then we wouldn't have to do all these, well then let's increase security in the schools. Well, if you don't have action, if you don't increase, on a legal priority, then increase security in schools. Send more police officers to our schools. That makes students feel so uncomfortable. Why has it come to that point? We don't want to have 10 officers walking into school. We respect that they're there, but why do we have to get to that point? It's not fair to us that we have to take that final leap now and we have to say enough is enough. And it is.
Enough.
The bottom line is that it's not, this conversation is going on for 30 years, 40 years. People say it's a culture war. They say it's not. We don't know, we don't really care. We're students, we're high school students. Our biggest concern waking up in the morning is, I don't want to have to get up and go to algebra class. I don't want to have to do those kind of things. And now we're waking up and going, well, now I have to be aware of suspicious characters in my school. Now I have to be aware, if I hear a loud bang in school, do I know where to go? Do I know where the exits are if anything happens? Do I know what to do in a lockdown drill? And that's our biggest concern now, and that shouldn't be that way. What are we doing to prevent that? What are we doing as a society to work that it's not? And you're right, it is nothing. So I made that promise to David from Parkland that we would organize here, and I promised that every student here, and there's many that wish they could come today and they couldn't, we are going to organize from a grassroots level up and onward, from South Jersey to the rest of the state and the Northeast, to make sure that what happened in Florida doesn't happen again. Students have to take the wheel of this issue and allow no one else to discuss this but us to get this done. Congress is doing nothing, and we need Congress to do something. We're fortunate some states have legislatures and have governors that want to take action, but there's still this opposition in every town, in every family that says, well, guns, don't take my gun away. And that's not what we're trying to say, but we're trying to prevent guns that shouldn't be in the hands of people that don't, it's a right, but do we really need an assault rifle? It's not necessary. We don't need that. And the debate of assault rifle, bottom line is, if you have a gun that can release that amount of bullets that fast, I don't care what you call it. You ask a kid who, I don't know, plays Call of Duty, the first class on our thing is assault rifle, and that's the gun you have, an AR-15. So, what is this debate? It's gone on for 6 years. End it. It's done. It's killing our students, and it's killing kids. It needs to end. And we're going to take that issue right to the Capitol, from the down up. So thank you guys for coming in today, and we've got a great list of speakers. I'd like to Andreas Castillos, a student, a sophomore from Collinsville High School North.
Thank you all for coming here. This is such an important issue. We can't ignore it. It's killing people. It's a bad thing. Anyway, I prepared a speech for everyone. I worked hours on it to get this as perfect as possible, so thank you. In the wake of the recent tragedy in Florida, once again we're embroiled in the issue of gun control and how it affects us as citizens of the United States of America. As a student, quite frankly, I'm terrified of the notion of such a thing happening and affecting my friends, my family, my loved ones, and of course, myself. As events have shown, no age group is safe from the damage caused by the negligence of our country's legislation. High schools, elementary schools, middle schools, all of them have been victims of great attacks from, not great, but pretty dangerous attacks from people with dangerous weapons. I greatly fear the terrifying scenario whereas it could happen right here in one of our schools. With over 379 teens and 71 children killed in gun violence-related incidents and 32 mass shooting incidents just within the first 2 months of 2018, lawmakers can very easily see the dilemma that blights this nation. And in comparison to other countries, gun violence rates are sky high. A great comparison to the US would be a country like Indonesia. We both have a very similar population. Indonesia has 60 million less residents than us, but they're right below us in terms of population. The thing about Indonesia is that they blow us out of the water when it comes to gun violence rates. They have one of the lowest gun violence rates in the world, even lower than Germany, and they have 4 times their population. Now one might ask, how? Well, it's quite simple. They have strict gun policies. But if we're going to go on the focus of less strict gun policies, since we have the Second Amendment, we can take inspiration from countries like Germany. In Germany, you require 2 permits to buy a gun. One for purchase, one for actually owning the gun. You also have to prove that you know how to use a gun, you go through a basic background check, and you, I'm sorry.
Doing great.
And certain guns have an age range, depending on how dangerous they are. And of course, most importantly, they have a ban on assault weapons. No semi-automatic weapons, no automatic weapons. All right. Now, because of these laws, it has shown that there's very effective gun control. Can anybody take a random guess how many deaths they had last year related with gun incidents? Well, they had 179. Now, in comparison, we've had 1,907 just within these past 2 months.
Oh my God. Wow.
Now, our gun laws are not all but non-existent due to the fear-mongering and propaganda that is written about in this nation thanks to the NRA. They've got a very large hold on our country's legislation, and as a result, crazy bills come by that they should be passed because they make complete sense. For example, the no-fly, no-buy bill that anybody should remember happened about 2 years ago. The essential gist of the bill was that if you were on the no-fly list, if you were a potential terrorist, you shouldn't be allowed to buy a gun. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
All right. Now, even though it makes a lot of sense to us, sadly for the House and the NRA, it wasn't that simple of an issue. And issues like these happen still today. A great example is recently our current administration revoked some laws that we had on restrictions for guns for people with mental disabilities.
Right.
And as we can see, people with mental disabilities do seem to be a large cause of problems like school shootings, yet somehow we managed to evade that fact and decide that they are allowed to buy guns anyway. Our nation needs better gun control. We don't need guns capable of firing more than 10 bullets per minute, really. When the Second Amendment was passed, a well-trained soldier could fire 2 bullets per minute. In comparison, the AR-15, the gun that was used in the Florida shooting, was able to shoot 45 bullets per minute. That's not as much of a drastic increase as, for example, a machine gun, which I believe are banned in this state. But that being said, when you think about it, 45 bullets per minute means in the right hands, 45 lives lost in 1 minute. 45 lives lost by one person in 1 minute. 45 lives and their friends and family and loved ones whose lives are now scarred forever because of 1 minute and 1 person and the negligence of one group of people, our legislators.
That's right.
As youth, we are the future of America. In less than 4 years, some of us will be able to vote. But that being said, even without our franchise, we can still make a change. As Zach said, we can organize. Oh, sorry. We can organize and urge our legislators to represent our interests and our interests and our concerns. We should all work together to succeed and make America a country that we love safe again. We shouldn't be concerned by things like being caught in the crossfire of a school shooting or dying. We should be concerned with normal things like what college we want to go to or keeping our grades up for the semester. We can't put this off any longer. We need to make ourselves safe again. Not one more teen, child, or even adult should have to be killed in a mass shooting. Let's make this stop for the future of America.
Next we have Evelyn Nazario, senior from High School North.
Hello, everyone. So, I just want to thank everyone that came out here in, support of asking our legislation for more protection. I just want to start off by saying that I think we can all agree here that we're not here to protest or cause a problem or do anything of that nature. We're here to bring awareness to the problems that have been going on, such as the tragedy that happened in Florida. I'm very astounded that I'm standing here today with my peers, students, and kids, because this shouldn't happen. As Zach said, we shouldn't have to be standing here demanding for protection from the legislation. There should already be stricter gun laws implemented. There should already be changes going on, because this rally may be going on for another hour or two, but the causes of things that happen, problems that happen, such as the shooting in Florida, they don't disappear. Kids, teachers, students, parents, cousins, whomever, they have to live with that grievance, that atrocity for the rest of their lives. People have to live with that fear of going to school and asking themselves, like, who's around, what's going to happen, where am I going to go if something does happen. And that shouldn't be a problem. We shouldn't have to think to ourselves, is that going to happen to me? I feel that it's time for change. It's time to have stricter gun laws, because we're not saying take away your rights. We're saying we want the right to protection for our students, for our teachers, for our parents, for anybody. And I just want to say to anybody listening, Harper, Florida, whoever, that us students, we are with you. Congress is with you. Thank you.
Teresa from Moms Demand Action.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming on. I am awed by all of you and all of your speeches. I am absolutely in awe of all of you. My name is Teresa Turner. I'm a mother of 4, and I am the co-lead for the Monmouth Ocean County group for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I want to thank Zach and all of the students who came today. I am both saddened and hopeful that students are joining this movement to end gun violence in our country. We are in uncharted territory here. Our group, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, was begun after the Sandy Hook shooting 5 years ago to advocate for sensible gun laws to keep you all safe. And while we've made great strides on a state-by-state basis, fighting for good laws and fighting against bad laws like campus carry, We obviously have a long way to go when school shootings like the one that just happened in Florida are still happening on a regular basis 5 years later. We have never involved students in our movement before. We were working for you and on behalf of you because it is our job to keep you safe. And this shooting on Wednesday was different. And in thinking about why it was different from all of the other shootings and all of the other mass shootings at schools, I couldn't help to think about Horton Hears a Who. You all know Horton Hears a Who? Okay, for those of you who might not know the story, it's about an entire world of people who live on a dust speck, no bigger than a seed. And this dust speck is in danger of being destroyed because nobody except a lone elephant believes there are people there. So everyone on the dust speck yells, "We're here, we're here," but still they aren't heard until they find the one small child who isn't yelling. And once his small voice is heard, the outside world hears and their world is saved. Yesterday I saw an amazing young woman named Emma Gonzalez speak at a gun control rally in Fort Lauderdale. She's a senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, where the shooting took place. And she hid from gunfire for 2 hours in a closet in her classroom. And if you haven't seen her speech, Google it and watch it. It is chilling and powerful. I feel like Emma Gonzalez was that one voice on that dust speck that yelled, "We're here, we're here." And her voice broke through and was heard throughout the country, in the halls of our government, and probably around the world at this point. And she speaks for all of you in calling for our elected officials, whose job it is to keep you safe from gun violence in your schools, to do their jobs and prevent this from happening again. And by being here, all of you students, and adding your voices to hers, you are going to be the force for real change in our country. So in response to this outcry and activism by all of you, Moms Demand Action has begun a student activism campaign. If you are 13 years or older, text the word student to 64433. You can do it right now. And you can become part of this movement to end gun violence. You will hear about ways you can help by doing that. And some of those ways include, if you are 18 or older, voting for those gun sense candidates who promise to keep you safe. If someone is in office who has done nothing to solve this problem, vote them out. And I have to mention, and I see some signs out there about Tom MacArthur, who is the representative from this district. And Tom MacArthur is the prime sponsor of concealed carry reciprocity, which would allow people from states with very weak gun laws to come into our state with concealed, loaded firearms. So if concealed carry, which it passed in the House already, thank you to Tom MacArthur, if it passes the Senate, this man, the student who bought this AR-15 legally in Florida would be able to come into New Jersey legally. So if you're 18 or older, you have the power to throw him out. And Vote for people who have pledged to pass common sense gun legislation. If you're not of voting age, there are other ways to get involved. One is a march that is happening on March 24th, which you will hear about if you text student to 64433, and we'll be talking a lot more about this march. Will be held on March 24th in Washington, D.C., but all over the country as well. There will be one here in New Jersey. And I hope, Zach, that you will be speaking at that. It is student-led, and the speeches will all be by students.
Yay, yeah.
Another way to help if you're not of voting age is have conversations with your parents and your family members about how important this issue is to you, and encourage them to consider a candidate's record before they vote. Consider that candidate's record on guns before they vote. And use Moms Demand Action as a resource to amplify all of your voices when you're advocating for yourselves. And thank you again for being here and using your voices to demand action on gun violence. You may think you have no power, but I promise you, you are being heard. You are. Loud and clear. And you will ultimately bring about change in our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, that's a big part of this is moving forward and electing officials who care about us and care about the issues we care about is a big part of how we're going to get past this. So, my own congressman, our own congressman, Tom MacArthur, he was invited here today, as he's been invited to many of student-related events, and he has not shown up.
Vote him out! Vote him out! Vote him out!
Vote him out! I agree.
Vote him out! Vote him out! Vote him
And not just in CD3 do we have a congressman who does not care about the students, but in CD4. And we're fortunate to have two candidates who are trying to unseat him and trying to represent the best of the students' interests. So I'd like to call up Mr. Josh Well.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Jim, Katie, and I are here, united against Chris Smith. United against an absentee congressman who doesn't protect these kids. This is your stage. This is your rally, and we're listening to you. Adults have failed you. Congress has failed you. I grew up in Monmouth County, all high school. And like many people in this audience, I didn't go to school worried about active shooters. I didn't go to school worried about what I would do to protect my friends in a moment of fear. I worried about my algebra test. I worried about my part-time job and going to college. And you deserve better. Every person on this stage, every young person in this audience, these young boys and girls in this audience deserve better. And we failed them. We failed them by electing the wrong people to Washington. Columbine, enough is enough. Sandy Hook, enough is enough. Orlando, enough is enough. Parkland, enough is enough. Las Vegas,
enough is enough.
We need to do better. We need to elect people of conscience to Washington. People who say no to the NRA. People who say no to concealed carry. People who pledge to ban semi-automatic rifles in this country. For every young person out there, thank you for leading us. Thank you for showing us the way. You have a seat at the table. The next generation of leaders who stand up and go to Washington understand the voices of young leaders. Zach, you are a young leader. All of you are the next generation of leaders, so thank you. In 2018, we have a chance to restore faith in government, to unite this country around issues that matter to every American. And this is the issue of our day, protecting our children. When you look back years from now, someone will ask, what did you do in 2018 to protect these children, to protect this nation? I hope you unseat every do-nothing congressman who keeps our schools unsafe, who doesn't protect these children. Now is our time.
That's right.
Thank you, Moms Demand Action. Thank you, Zach. Thank you to the leaders around the country who are going to push us forward to help us solve these problems. I promise you, when I go to Washington, if I have that honor, I will be listening and I will protect you every day because you deserve it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's go on to Jim Keating.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Keating, and along with Josh, I'm running for Congress in the 4th District just north of here, and we are united and committed to get real leadership for the 4th District and send Mr. Smith packing come November. I used to be a councilman in the city of Asbury Park. In 2006, we had 75 shootings, 6 murders. I was the only councilman that went to every funeral of those young men that died. I remember the morning that Tylee Pugh was killed half a block from our middle school at 11 o'clock in the morning. I went to the council meeting that night asking for action, for solidarity with my fellow elected officials. And I was told, there's nothing we can do. The Hatfields and the McCoys. In 1999, I was teaching high school at St. Francis Prep up in New York City. It was in April of '99 that Columbine happened. Do we have any fellow educators out there? I remember coming into school and could not believe the apathy of my fellow educators. Well, it didn't happen here. We've got stuff to do today. And here we are, nearly 20 years out. And how many more massacres have happened? Just this week, 17 dead. 15 students, just like these kids standing here. Murdered. An athletic director. Coach. For those of us who are educators and students, we think it could have been us. And we're scared. And we want action. And we have watched our elected officials do nothing for nearly 20 years since Columbine with regard to common sense gun reform, and it is time that it stopped. On behalf of every adult in America, I'm sorry. We failed. And it has taken you, our teenagers, our high school students, our young adults, to be the conscience of these United States of America.
Right.
And it is time that we, as adults, as elected officials, as people running for office, step aside and amplify the voices of our young people who are saying enough is enough. Common sense gun reform now. seen a do-nothing Congress who is bought and sold by the NRA and the gun lobby fail our nation and our children. We saw just in 2017 in February, Congressman Smith vote for a bill along with Ryan and the rest of them to pull back the reforms that were put in place to make sure that people who have mental illness do not get access to firearms. We've heard them this last week, their mantra. Don't jump to conclusions. We got to listen to the facts. We don't want to take away thoughts and prayers. It's about mental illness. Part of it is, yes. So let's do two things. Let's not repeal laws that are keeping guns out of the hands of people with mental illness. And two, why don't we vote for universal single-payer Medicare for all so everybody gets access to good mental health? My family's had a tavern in Southern Ocean County for 35 years. We have a lot of customers who are hunters, sportsmen and women. And when I stand behind the bar and listen to them, they're with us, many of them. They don't want to get shot either. They don't want their kids shot at school either. And we need to work in collaboration with them to push policies just to get us some very low-hanging fruit, like universal background checks. Like a 14-day waiting period to purchase any firearm. Licensing, training, mandatory renewals, closing the gun show loophole. These are things that the majority of Americans, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, agree on, and it is time that the voices of the majority of our nation, led by the youth of our nation, are heard. So what do we do? I wish I could say that it was going to take one rally on the steps of the library and we could fix this thing. We are going to have to march. We are going to have to organize. We are going to have to commit acts of civil disobedience and risk jail time. We are going to have to chain ourselves to the gates of the White House and stand up and be counted. And I share these things, not because they're exciting, not because it's easy, not because it doesn't demand sacrifice. But I think about one of the greatest victories that was won in our nation. And I look out here and see the result of it. The majority of people here are women. And it took women organizing for 83 years to get the right to vote. I am confident that together, if we begin to organize and do those things that I just talked about, because those are the things that got the women the right to vote, that we can win common sense gun reform in a much shorter period of time. It is imperative that everyone here is registered to vote, that you get your friends registered to vote, that we're doing voting drives in every high school, in every town, in the 3rd district, the 4th district, the 7th, the 11th, every state in our nation, so that come November, we can vote them out.
Vote them out! 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 Vote them out!
Amen. Who's got the drum? Thank you. It's time that we as adults had the same courage as those young men and women from Parkland and the young men and women that are standing behind us here and in front of you. Clap for them. Yes, these are our children. Absolutely. And it is time that we follow the leadership of our nation's youth and push back against the NRA and the gun lobby that each and every one of us stands up and is counted, particularly on Election Day, because we, ladies and gentlemen, on this issue, are on the right side of history. I want to say that again. We are on the right side of history. The majority of Americans stand with us. It is time that the majority of our Congress did the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. To close this, I want to really direct this to the students who helped organize this. Last time in this area, when we tried to organize an event like this for a different issue, you know, when it went out to the press and when that event was over, in our schools and on the you know, Facebook comments and letters, there was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of negativity and threats that came towards us. And I'd like to share my cousin, who was a teacher in Woodbridge for 40 years. The day after that, and I was distraught looking at all the negative comments that they had sent us. I got that letter from her, and it was a card, and it said, "If you're crazy enough to think you can change the world, you're exactly who the world needs."
Yeah.
And nothing could be more true. And I think together that we make this promise. We make a promise to the students of Parkland, to David Hogg, that we're going to continue this fight after today. We're going to push forward, and we're not going to stop this fight. We care about gun safety. We care about ending gun violence, and we're going to push forward, and it doesn't matter how long it'll take. Students will lead this fight, and we're going to push all the way to the end. Thank you. I want to thank everybody that came here today. And you can see the faces and you recognize teachers, students, family, friends, and you know that this is not some far-off political, you know, problem. This is a community problem. We're all concerned citizens, and we have to take action together. Not left, not right. Take both the wings for the bird to fly. Let's go and work together in our community to get this done. I want to acknowledge really quick that the president for the Toms River Board of Education is here because he cares. And that's enough. That's all it takes, if you care. Showing up is half the battle. You guys showed up today. So that ends this today, and I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Thank you. And thank you guys.